Good afternoon, everyone from Dunroven. It's a kind of a rainy but warm March 1st day, and welcome to March, the Ides of March. I hope you saw on our newsletter that we have some eyes out there for you guys to figure out. Horses' eyes, Brandon. We gave them photos of all the horses' eyes and said which is which, you know. Anyway, we're delighted. Yeah, we're delighted to have Brandon with us as usual. This is just so much fun. And I think you have a big wiring project for us, don't you?
Yeah, kind of something that it'll be explained on there, but it took a little time to wire it up and do something that I can do myself, where I didn't have to pay somebody to do it, saved a little bit of money, but then also proved that it works.
Well, this again is another piece of equipment that most people don't have.
No.
Most people aren't familiar with this kind of equipment, but we'll talk about it on the other side. And all I can say is that every Alaskan is familiar with this equipment. Okay. With that, James, I'll ask you to roll the video.
Hello from the Hashknife. What you're seeing here is this round circle world. Really old power pole used to sit, and we had overhead lines coming in. Now we've got a underground line that goes to a pole there, where we actually just replaced it and moved that pole to there, increased the height about 5 foot, the same as that pole behind it, which you can see in the distance, so that when I'm unloading hay or have a truck come in, I no longer have to worry about hitting those lines with a tractor. That would be bad. And so then we took that underground line and we went along this scar in the ground here to the house, and we upgraded the panel in there, upgraded that meter back there, and actually upgraded the panel in the shop. And this is where the other pole stood that was holding up all these overhead lines. So a really good upgrade that allowed us to also, with this, provide a spot where we can put in a really good generator and power the whole thing when the power's out. So now I have to make sure we can do that so we don't lose any power this fall and winter. We're going to be good to go. Well, in order to make this generator be able to cover our tails in case the power goes out, or in case the power goes out, I've got to put together a connection from our generator plug-in that's at the panel to our generator itself. So in order to do that, I could buy one, but I'm not going to do that. It's too cheap. I got this wire right here, which is heavy gauge wire. I have got to put an end on that guy that is like this. So we have to wire this stuff up and then test our wiring, make sure it's going to work okay. In order to do that, I got a few tools and hopefully a lot of patience. So stick with me. I've got a multi-tester here. I can do voltage with this, and I can check continuity, make sure I got the right line hooked up to the right blade. And these are too small for this job, but I got a set of side cutters or dikes, a screwdriver, and of course my pocket knife. So I'll pull this guy out, and this is something that can be wired for either 30 amp or 20 or 50 amp, and I've got to have to wire this for 50 amp. And look at that, we have directions. Okay, we don't need directions. I'm just kidding. We'll use them. I got to do both ends of this, so it's always safe to do that the right way. And green wire to the top. Let's see here. Let's pull out these pieces and parts that go along with this guy. Oh my goodness. Now you can hear in the background all kinds of rattling and stuff that's going on. We got one of those 50-50 days. It's about 50-mile-an-hour wind with 50-degree temperatures outside, so I am not getting much else done. And it's just fruitless to try to do any horse work. So what I'm going to do is some of this catch-up work that we can use for prepping for winter. Okay, so here is one of our blades that can go into here for a 50 amp. Here's a ground, and this is the old game that you play with the shapes into the holes. And then we've got 4 pieces here that look similar. Here's our ground. Normally do that on your white, silver, and then the rest of these are just plain old colors that it's brass or copper, and you can put these in the appropriate holes. Ground goes here, our neutral goes here, and then we're going to stick our red wire here and our black one there. This we will have no use for, and this takes up the plug space in the back of that. Here's a couple of screws to close the whole thing and hold her closed. So I think the easiest thing to do is figure out where we want to have this wire stripped back to. And if I hold this up here, because here's our 4 wires, these guys are huge, and I hold that so that guy, the longest one, will come just to the end of that, and then you figure out where you're going to need to hold this closed at, which this guy comes in here essentially, and that distance is going to be about right here. It's going to lay right in this section right between these holes for our screws. So I'm going to cut this right here, and being really careful not to cut the wires underneath, but just to do this insulation on top. We don't want to make any bare wire in there that we don't need. And I can pull that, kind of stretch it. And this rubber material is really nice for wintertime. It's soft and is pliable. So if you got a winter storm and it's super cold out, this thing just doesn't sit into a coil like a frozen water hose. It will actually bend, and it's designed to do that. So I'm making some headway here. Knife is pretty sharp, so I'm just gonna touch that up a little bit, pull it. There we go. And this is to make sure that I don't cut the wires underneath. I'd rather pull this apart and struggle with it a little bit. Do that. So here's our wires, and they're all separated by almost some cordage almost. It's a type of cardboard wrapped into a little knot, little twist in there, just like it's a rope. Okay. So we'll cut all of those, and now I can take a measurement on my 2 blades. The green one goes to the top, that's your ground, and this red and black, I'll have these on this side, kind of like that. Green goes to the top. So I'm just going to look at the width of that blade, and now I'm going to cut the insulation off of this guy. And as I do this, I think I'm just going to put this guy together, open up this clamp, and then that's going to run straight up and down like that. Open the clamp up, push it in there, up to the insulation. There we go, and it's just right at the edge. I like that, so there's not a lot of anything sticking out that can short. This is the ground. So anything that could be live would find that. And I want to make sure these are all trimmed up nice and even when we close this box up so that we don't have any wires touching. That would be bad. Because this is a 220 volt capacity wire and plug that we're putting in here. There we go. All right, now that that's out of the way. Boy, this wind is just howling. It's even moving stuff on the walls of the shop here. Okay, nice and tight. Now, just for fun, I'm going to install this. And you can see where the holes are here and how much of this I've got out. So I'm going to put a blade in here and then measure how far that'll go. So it's right to the end. That'll stick out. I'll cut it right there. And I can do the same thing on this side while I'm there. Make sure that is nice and straight coming in here because you don't want that crooked. Otherwise your wires will be off. If I lay that like that, it pulls. So I want it nice and straight. Lay that in here. And I'll mark that at the edge. Yeah, pull those out and cut those two. Seat those in. There we go. Set that neutral down in there as well. Push each one at a time. They're kind of a pain. A little bit of help. And then my ground goes in over the top. Okay. Push my housing wire up in there, the outside. And then drop that in. Boy, oh boy, this is so tight, but it's going to be nice. It'll work out just like we want when that's set in. That has got to snap in there. Yep. Like that. Set that in. Make sure my blades are straight and in there deep enough. So nothing's touching. Was it? There we go. Just work it closed. There we go. And now, drop a screw in here. Oop. Go backwards, that wouldn't do me any good. Push that through. And then I'm going to kind of cheat once I get this started a little bit because it's just really hard to hold this. Get it to start to pull down a little bit. Pull my other screw in here. Get it lined up. And I'm going to squeeze this, and then I'm going to pull these blades a little bit just to make sure. There we go. They're kind of pulling out a little more, just seating it. Okay. Use my hand and just kind of squeeze this closed. Same as this side. All right, there's one side. That worked well. Blades look like they take a little bit more of a set inside of here, and I'll just line those up. Pretty darn good. I think we're going to be in a spot we're okay. So now I got to just put the other one on, and then we'll do a continuity test just to make sure that we're doing the same lines on the same side. Okay, let's grab both of these, lay them out here. They should have wired them the same, so they should have the same colored wires in the same position, which correlate to the receptacle. So now I'm going to turn on my voltmeter, and actually I'm going to have to go to continuity, and it'll give me a little beep when those things line up and are all in the same place, meaning this is one end of the ground, this is one end of our black wire, here's our neutral, and here's our red. Okay, so one thing I want to do is I want to make sure I've got nothing else crossed. So nothing there, nothing there, nothing there, but I got there. All right, same way here. All right, we are good to go. Now, what we got to do is test this, and this is where the dangerous part can come in, because I want to make sure I got electricity flowing through this guy, but if I touch these, that's 220 volts going through there. It's lights out. Sayonara. See ya. It'd be the last broadcast. Anyway, let's see what she does. Let's set this guy up. Plug him in. And that is not easy to slide in there, which is okay. Breaker's already on. And now let's go take a look. Okay, so again, we want to be careful because that is live right there. And we're going to see what we've got. That's our ground, so we shouldn't have to worry about that. Here's our neutral. And one leg, 122.0. And here's our other leg and a neutral, 121.6. So there's a little bit of line loss, as you can see, just in this 60 foot of wiring. So that is ready to go, ready to plug into the generator and then start everything up. And I've got a procedure for that. Again, we're going to have Lisa do that cold so that if I'm not here and power goes out, she could get power to everything by using my procedure and not hurt anybody down the line that is working on getting power restored for whatever reason. So, oh, Lisa! Lisa is on the scene and now going to prove that all of our effort is going to pay off. Okay, so she's camera shy. So we got it, the generator pulled up here and just stuck inside the shop and easy to work on. She's going to go through the procedure here that we built to make sure it'll work. So,
we. No, you.
Oh, me. Okay. So let's show them what we got, Lisa. The
Well,
power has went out.
oh no, the power went out. I'm going to call Mark. He's
neighbor.
across the road.
Yeah, all right.
Because Brandon won't answer my phone calls.
Okay.
Okay, I got to check the oil and the gas. Here's my oil check. Do I have to actually do it? Oh. You know, you're kind of a problem. All right.
Full?
Close enough? Does that work?
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's full.
Works fine. Check fuel level.
Oops. There we go. Fuel level is
Down there, and it's low,
really low,
but it's
but
okay.
I think we got enough.
Yep.
Okay. Park inside the barn for good exhaust. I think that's been done. Turn off the breakers at the meter pole to the off position. So that's the outside pole.
So it's outside the main.
Okay. So I didn't know we were doing field trips today,
We're
but
doing a field trip.
we're going on a field trip into the wind.
Prove this is going to be right and work, and that way it's a dry run.
Dang wind.
Yeah, dang wind is right. Okay, so
So. Okay. Shop, house.
Chill the power. So again, possibly battery line. Ryan was working on that in a power outage.
And this is a design that some guy put together because it was a guy, definitely.
Pick it up, there we go.
All right. Then I'm going to go on another field trip back to the barn, and I'm going to look for two 50 amp generator breakers and the electrical panel to shut off.
Or to verify they're off.
I'm guessing they're still on since the power was on and it suddenly went off.
Well,
but
because it's a generator, we normally run them off. We don't power that.
oh, gotcha. Okay, you're gonna have to fix this so I can get to this. If this were to be an emergency of some sort, because then it's just gonna get me upset. All right, this must be the generator one.
Yes, it is.
Is it labeled?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And it's off.
It's off. Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's verified off.
All right.
You're going to have to go back to that at some point.
All right. Do you see the problem?
I see the problem. The problem is I need a bigger shop.
Okay. I would concur. Plug the cable in. So one goes here. Doesn't matter which end, right?
Read your. It doesn't matter which end, but you need to read your directions here.
Verify small breaker and receptacle is on, right?
Yep.
And then plug this guy in.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is not an easy thing to do. Now, you want to make sure all your breakers are off. Go ahead, you're doing good.
All right, I think.
Not the way I do it, but you're not as strong as I am. So.
I think that's in.
Yep, that's in.
All right. Then.
So you do not want to run this generator without this being plugged in on the other end, because if you run that, you're going to have voltage in there that can heal you.
Oh, great. I have to go back in that hole that I can't get into. Okay. All right. So, for all of you out there, should understand there is nearly a foot difference in height between Brandon and myself. And there's also about an 8-inch arm length difference. And it makes all the difference in the world in what's going on as far as getting into places.
Are you complaining?
Nope, just stating facts. Okay.
There's no good to complain here. All right, so both ends are plugged in.
Big red, electrocute yourself. If you don't do this the way I say, all the unnecessary lights in the house and shop are off. Make sure the welder amperage voltage is up to 10. Start the generator and verify smooth operation. So should Charday start?
Yes.
Smooth operator.
Yeah.
All right. Looks good. Now I go to the panel. And I energize the breaker that was off. Okay. This one. And we have lights.
Lights. Look at that. It works.
All right.
All right. So,
I can do it with instructions.
we'll keep the instructions on the wall over there. Just slip them underneath the wires on the edge of that pole.
Now, if it was Lisa,
We'll laminate that.
I was going to say, we would put it in something that will be weatherproof and also at a height that she can reach.
Yes. Sounds good.
All right.
All right. Yay.
Yay.
So, thanks for joining us. And you get to see the lovely ranch boss
Hey, Brandon, we're all making comments about the instructions and getting Lisa involved. First of all, she's terrific. I mean, I've known this for an awfully long time, but the very compatible relationship that you guys have working together is very evident, and it's also evidence that she stands up for herself.
Oh, you think? she's not very big, but she's mean as hell.
Oh yeah, we all know that. That's for sure. Well, this was really interesting having her involved because it brought up a couple of things that I do think are important. At one point, she says she compares your height and your arm length with hers, and also she made the comment, "You can tell a guy did this." And in part, I have dealt with this my whole life too. Our hands are not as strong, and you guys put tires on, and I can't get them off, and so we women have gone to all kinds of lengths to compensate. And I got a piece of pipe to put on my iron to take the bolts off the truck that I would just jump on so that I could get the bolts off. But this is a real issue, the difference between men and women's strength in a situation like this.
It is. And I think about everything that we do when we do something together and I need her help. I'm always thinking about what is the easiest part of the job so I can put her on that end. What's the lightest thing to do? What's the thing that you're not going to be likely to trip? It happens all the time. When I was a kid, I wasn't very old, and I was riding horseback everywhere by myself, mostly. But I always had a lariat with me, even as a little kid, and it wasn't to rope anything. It was so that I could get a gate open.
Yes.
Because I would take the rope and I would wrap it around the gate stay or around the gate brace and then onto the stay and around it. So I would kind of encircle it. And then I would have my horse back up and hold it so I could lift the bale in and bring him forward. And I'd get him closed the same way because there was no way I was going to get these gates open or closed. So, that perspective when I was a little guy, it kind of follows you. You forget what it's like when you get bigger and stronger. But then when you have a young little thing like her, then you have to start thinking of these things again. And believe me, it's easier to live with me when I can't do it than it is to live with her when she can't do it when I'm supposed to make it right.
Oh, I can believe that. I have sworn at many a rancher when I would take my belt off. I didn't have a lariat, and I would take my belt off, or I would use the horse's lead rope or whatever. I mean, and sometimes if they're tight on both the bottom and the top, you really got a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
No, she struggles with some things, and I mean, it's just the way it is, So you have to think about that and try to make it easier for her, put her on the easier, lighter end of doing things.
Well, and that's particularly true in a situation where you're isolated. I mean, I laughed out loud when she said, "I'll go across and get the neighbor." Well, and she was joking because you can't do that. You can't go across and get the neighbor.
Right.
And so everybody really has to be in the position of being able to do something like this.
And that's why I had her do this, because if I'm not here, she needs to know how. She's got to be able to run through this once and be successful at it so that when she's by herself, she'll go, okay, it'll jog her memory a little bit, and then having that procedure there to help her out.
Yeah, the procedure, people were commenting on that too. And at the very beginning, I was thinking, Brandon, you are a natural teacher. And I've said this before in terms of your horsemanship, but I think you do an excellent job all the way around. Have you thought about doing some online classes for some of these things for people just getting into the...
Oh God, no, there's guys that are way more competent than me that would do a better job than this. I look at it again from a perspective of when I look at something brand new, what is it that I want to see? And we did our series of training videos, and one of them is a packing video that I've done, and I'd never seen one done before. And the stuff I'd learned from other people and kicking around. And when I did it, knots are a consideration for people that it blows their mind. They can get it for a minute and then the next day they'll forget it. So every knot that I tied when I did this packing video, I slowed it down and I did it in slow motion and really talk your way through it. And I try to do that with everything with that same perspective, because just because I've done it 1,000 times, there was a time when I did it the first time. And you try to remember that and try to bring that to help somebody along. So, I mean, just the kind of the perspective I've always had, but oh no, I don't think that I would have enough that would do well enough to help anybody out, because most of the stuff I do is on the fly like that. It's just, okay, here's the circumstance, we got to solve the problem.
Well, but I think that's the class you should give, is problem solving. And I'm going to push back on you, because I think the organization of material is very important and all of that, but you create a really good learning environment. And I think that's really key to all of this, that, your demeanor is very inviting. You have a sense of humor about yourself. And I just think that you create a very warm learning environment. And Lisa may disagree with me. And I have jokingly said to people, I would hang sheetrock with anybody besides my husband.
Well, you never try to teach your spouse to do anything. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Even as good as you can be. And I've done that with the horses when we were, newly married or very young. And I had to think of her like a paying client. Yeah. Because you don't talk to each other the same way as you did with somebody that you're not familiar with. And so I would really have to do that. And it's tough,
Listen, I remember being on a scaffolding in our living room in Anchorage, hanging ceiling drywall with sterling, and him getting antsy with me and me just walking off with him holding half of it up there saying, "You be a nice boy or I'm going to walk out the
door." Yeah, that's those kinds of things happen. You guys always wait till we're in the most compromising position.
To take advantage.
I mean, make your point. Yeah,
exactly right. Well, people are agreeing with me, by the way, Brandon, on chat, that you do have a very welcoming and approachable atmosphere, and that's really important to learning. The other thing I kind of wanted to say was, electricity is a whole different realm for most of us. I've really appreciated having James around, because he is an electrician, maybe not a licensed one yet, but he knows it all. And it's something that if you haven't had any experience with, like me, I'm just darn right afraid of it, to be honest with you. I wouldn't attempt it.
Yeah, and you should be, because just like that, when I had that one end plugged in and I was checking the other end, that's 220 volts. If I touch that, I'm dead.
Yeah.
You can't mess with it. And maybe James has got some perspective there, but my understanding is we don't really know what electricity truly is. I mean, yeah, we can explain how to create it, how to do all these things, but the way it acts, we've just learned how to harness it. Yeah. And use it. I mean, it is very complex. So my hands sweat when I change flashlight batteries. I'm so afraid of it. So when I start messing with this stuff, I am very, very careful about what I'm doing. And, I'm no electrician, but I can do some things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's very definitely worthy of our respect. I mean, that's for sure. There was one more thing before we go, Brandon, that I wanted to point out to you, and that is the Missoulian for the last 3 or 4 days has been running a series of articles about the difficulties facing Montana livestock growers. You might want to look it up online, and it absolutely parrots much of what you have been saying about the producers versus the packers, versus the distribution system. And it just seems to me that something's got to break here for that. But your programs have really given me a much deeper understanding of all of that.
Well, I thank you. That's really kind. When you can say something and other people are saying the same things, it's not just an opinion at that point. Then you're starting to work more into facts. This is you're saying this is happening, and it's measurable in the way that other people are experiencing it in the same way. So there's a lot of differences in ag, and especially in cattle production. and the different phases of it, but we're all affected really similarly. So, yeah, when, Kaylin and I, we do a deal on the YouTube channel, and we get into this a lot, and we try to stay as far away from politics as we possibly can on almost everything. And you and I do that. I mean, we can have our own over a scotch and some cheese and wine and stuff, and tell each other we're wrong, but we still give a hug at the end of the day, and we go our separate ways. But sometimes it's not possible to avoid the politics, because it's wrought with politics, and that's part of the issues. And
it is, and this guy brings that out too. It does seem like stock growers really do need to organize themselves and get with the right politicians and change some things, because it's really devastating on the producer end. And meanwhile, these large packing companies are making money hand over fist. So,
well, and it's funny because you'll see things like that come up, and a politician will bring something up and say, "Boy, we need to focus on this." And when you look at what they propose, it does nothing, and it changes nothing. And so whenever they do that, I roll my eyes and I call them a bad word under my breath, and so you're in the bag for it, because you're taking lobbyist money. And I'm very cynical when it comes to that, because I've been right too many times by being cynical, and I'm still hopeful. But when people get hungry or can't afford food, that's what happens. And that's what we try to do, is educate folks that, hey, this is what's going on out here, and it may not affect you now, but it's going to affect you later.
Well, I think the word's getting out is my point. I would encourage you to read this, because I think they've done a fairly good job of talking about it.
Yeah,
and I'll
definitely look that up in the Missoulian.
The Missoulian, yeah. Okay. It really reminded me of you, so I thought I would mention that. And I have to say that people are really agreeing with me about your being a good teacher. We got other people chiming in here, and
that's really
people
kind.
really admire you, Brandon. And that's really when you open people's minds, is when they come to trust you and know you, and it's just really a pleasure for us to have you coming every week to talk to us. I really appreciate it.
Well, that is really kind, and I really appreciate that from everybody. The real good teacher is Lisa. She is phenomenal, and I've learned so much from her, I truly have, about how to present yourself and what do people want, and that's helped me a lot. So we'll try to get her on here more.
Yeah.
Like
well, tell her we really enjoyed her, and her sense of humor.
Oh, she's got a good sense of humor.
Oh yeah, I know that for sure.
And then she's not afraid of me at all. I loom over the top of her, and I can look at her dirty, and she'll like, yeah, what do you think you're going to do? So yeah, I do not intimidate her in the least.
Okay. Well, it's really good to have you, Brendan, and I appreciate your being here, and we'll look forward to our time next week.
That sounds real good. Well, thank you, everyone, and we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks
Bye-bye.
a lot. Bye.